Hey sports card fans, it's John, Wade Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the top 10 PSA vintage baseball card sales on eBay for cards from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s for the month of December 2023. Now, for the month of December, for all 3 decades of cards, there's a pretty good variety of cards that made the top 10 lists. Now, for cards from the 1950s, there are a lot of big boy cards that made the list. For cards from the 1960s, I have a commentary or two regarding one card in particular and the grade that it received. And for the 1970s, there's another maybe potential head scratcher in terms of the price that was paid for a particular card. So it should be an interesting set of top 10 lists. So let's go check them out. Let's start off with the top 10 from the 1950s. At number 10, we have this 1953 Topps Satchel Paige in a PSA 8. What a gorgeous looking card. This one sold on December 7th for $11,158. It was an auction. There were 35 bids. Now, the current VCP average price for a PSA 8 is $13,452. Now, this particular sale was not in VCP's current database. The record high sale for a PSA 8 was $16,800 back in October of 2022 through Golden Auction, and also in March of 2023 through PWCC auction. At number 9, we have this 1953 Topps Mickey Mantle in a 6.5. The centering on that is nearly perfect. This one sold on December 3rd for $12,668. It was an auction. There were 45 bids, and it sold for right around the current VCP average price of $12,556. Now, the record high sale for a PSA 6.5 was $16,500 back in December of 2021 through PWCC. At number 8, we have the 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle rookie card in a PSA 4. Other than those two print lines running right down the middle, really great looking card. The centering on that, registration's good. This one sold on December 13th for $13,500. It was a best offer. Now, this card was not in VCP's database. Their current VCP average price is $14,706. The record high sale for a PSA 4 was $48,000 back in April of 2022 through a PWCC Premier auction. Now, it's interesting to note those two print lines right down the middle were familiar to me in doing these top 10 lists, and sure enough, this same card sold for $21,000 back in September of 2023. Now, that little asterisk there means that that sale also back in September was not in VCP's database. So we have two sales here of the same PSA 4 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle. Both sales, according to eBay, took place and were finalized, but were not in VCP's database. But an interesting swing, if those sales are in fact true, that it went from a sale of $21,000 in 3-4 months down to $13,500. At number 7, we have the 1955 Topps Roberto Clemente rookie card in a PSA 7. This one sold on December 18th for $14,600. It was an auction. There were 49 bids and sold for right around the current VCP average price of $16,423. Now, the record high sale was a little over $31,000 back in May of 2016 through a heritage auction. At number 6, we have this 1952 Bowman Willie Mays in a 7.5. This one sold on December 26th for $15,299. It was a best offer. Now, what's interesting here is this sale was not in VCP's database, and they have a current VCP average price of a low $2,700 for a 7.5. And they have a record sale of only $3,000 back in August, all the way in 2016 through eBay. And the last copy that VCP has a record of a 7.5 was back in April of 2020 through eBay. Now, for comparison purposes, the 7.5 only has a population of 6. PSA didn't grade a lot of half grades of this 52 Bowman Willie Mays. Now, a PSA 8 on average is over $30,000. So for a 7.5 to sell for $15,000, not unreasonable. But again, for whatever reason, VCP does not have this sale recorded in their database, which is the reason why the current VCP average price is so low. At number 5, we have another 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle. This one also in a PSA 4. The centering is not as good as the previous one. Looks like a little registration, just slightly off, but of course it is missing those two major print lines. So overall, it is a much cleaner copy. This one sold on December 31st for $17,495. It was a buy it now, and the current VCP average price, again, $14,706. So this one sold for about $3,000 over the current VCP average price. But again, overall, a nice clean copy for that PSA 4. And of course, the record high sale for a PSA 4 of $48,000. At number 4, we have another 51 Bowman Mickey Mantle. Now, this one managed to get a PSA 5, even though this one has one of those vertical print streaks through it. Interesting that even with that print mark there, still got a PSA 5. It is off center as well. Registration seems to be a little bit better than that previous PSA 4, though. This one sold on December 30th for 5 cents under 20 grand. It was an auction. There was only one bid, and the current VCP average price for a PSA 5 is $23,128. But the record high sale for a PSA 5 was $55,100 back in March of 2021 through eBay. At number 3, we have returning to the top 10 list after about a 4-month absence, I believe, the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle. Then this one is definitely true to its grade in a PSA 1. Really banged up corners, creases galore. Now it's centered very nicely. Looks like maybe a little bit of somewhat paper loss on the back, some creases as well. This one sold on December 31st for $26,500, and it was a buy it now, right around the current VCP average price for a PSA 1 of $25,998. Now, the record high sale for a PSA 1 was $60,000 back in September of 2022 through Heritage Auction. At number 2, we have a 51 Bowman Willie Mays rookie card. This one in a PSA 7. The only thing that's detracting from this really is it's slightly off center, but the corners look really sharp, bright color, really good registration. This one sold on December 17th for $34,600. It was an auction. There were 73 bids on this card. Now, the current VCP average price is $49,409. So it's interesting that this sold well below, even in an auction, from the current VCP average price for a PSA 7. Now, the record high sale nearly reached $100,000 at $99,630 back in March of 2021 through Golden Auction. And the number one card on eBay for the month of December from the 1950s, Another 52 Topps Mickey Mantle in a PSA 1. Now, for PSA 1s, this is the eye appeal on this is just amazing. Obviously, if you note there on the top border in the center, there's a pinhole. Now, it also looks like there could be a slight crease just above his hands there. Other than that, centering is just phenomenal. Corners look really nice. Barring that pinhole, maybe the crease there, I could see this card easily getting a 4, maybe even a PSA 5. This one sold on December 30th for $52,500. It was a buy it now, about double the current VCP average price of just under $26,000. And again, the record high for a PSA 1 was $60,000. So this was approaching a record high sale for a PSA 1. Would love to know in the comments, do you believe that this PSA 1 is worth twice what a average PSA 1 sells for? Because that's what this card sold for, twice the current average. But again, the overall eye appeal, and for that grade, I personally can see why someone spent that much more above a PSA 1, because I haven't seen too many PSA 1s that look overall that good. All right, let's get to the top 10 from the 1960s. Coming in at number 10, we have this 1961 Topps Mickey Mantle in a PSA 8. This one sold on December 28th for $4,800. It was a best offer, sold a little bit below the current VCP average price of $5,209. Now, this sale was not in VCP's database. The record high sale for a PSA 8 was just over $10,000 back in December of 2022 through eBay. At number 9, we have this 1968 Topps Johnny Bench rookie card in a PSA 9. Now, this is one of the cards that I hinted at in my intro that PSA 9, again, we're not talking a PSA 10 here, so I can't be too critical, but to me, that back is probably within the tolerance of PSA 9s. Just for PSA 9, the back just seems too off-center for me. For a PSA 9, the front looks fairly well centered, good registration, not many print marks and so on. So that's my 2 cents on this particular card. And this one sold on December 7th for $4,800. It was a buy it now. This card was not in VCP's database. They show a current VCP average price of $5,431. The record high for a PSA 9 was $11,500 back in March of 2021 through eBay. Now, in a PSA 9, there's a population count of 215. There were only 16 PSA 10s. At number 8, another 1968 Topps Johnny Bench rookie card, also in a PSA 9. And I question that because if you look down by the name, the Johnny Bench and Ron Tompkins, there looks to be a fairly prominent black ink line straight across the card. Now, the back is well centered, better than that previous PSA 9. I don't know. Centering on the front, still a little off. You have some ink marks around the Reds blue circle there. I don't know how a card with that prominent of an ink mark across it could still get a PSA 9. Would love to know your thoughts in the comments. But this card sold on December 18th for $5,000. It was a buy it now. And again, this Johnny Bench rookie card as well was not in VCP's database. Again, they show that average price of $5,431 and the record sale of $11,500. At number 7, we have this 1960 Topps Mickey Mantle in a beautiful PSA 8. Maybe centering off a little bit. Looks to be a couple black print marks in that red border there. That's really the only thing that takes away from this gorgeous looking mantle card. This one sold on December 11th for $5,400. It was a best offer. Yet another card not in VCP's database. They have a current average price of $6,511. The record high sale for a PSA 8 was $10,360 back in February of 2022 through memory lane. At number 6, we have this 1968 O-Pee-Chee Willie Mays in a PSA 9. Check out the picture of the back of the card. That's where you can tell it is different than the standard 1968 Topps cards that have a yellow background color to the back. This one sold on December 12th for $5,555. It was at auction. There were 32 bids, and that is the current VCP average price and is also a new record high sale for a PSA 9 O-Pee-Chee Willie Mays. The previous high was only $1,286 back in October of 2015 through a PWCC listing on eBay. In a PSA 9, this is one of only 5 copies, and there's only one graded PSA 10. At number 5, another interesting card to show up on the top 10 list, the 1963 Topps National League Pitching Leaders, featuring Don Drysdale in a PSA 9. Check out that white border. That just stares you right in the face there, how bright that white border is. You don't see that too often in 63 Topps cards. This one sold on December 15th for $5,850. It was an auction. There was only one bidder, and it sold for under the current VCP average price, believe it or not, of $6,525 for PSA 9. The record high sale was $7,800 back in June of 2020 through Heritage Auction. And probably the reason for the high price for this PSA 9 is it has a pop count of only 6, and there have been no PSA 10s graded of that National League Pitching Leaders card. At number 4, we have this 1969 Topps Willie Mays in a PSA 9. Now, this listing didn't have a picture of the back of the card, which is why it is missing here. This one sold on December 18th for $5,900. It was a buy it now, sold for a little bit above the current VCP average price of $5,722. And yet again, another card that is not in VCP's database. The record high sale for a PSA 9 was $8,700 back in June of 2023 through PWCC. At number 3, we have this 1968 Topps Nolan Ryan rookie card in a PSA 8, a fairly common card to show up in the top 10 list. This one sold on December 10th for $7,000. It was an auction. There was only one bidder. And the current VCP average price, $7,791, so just a little bit below the current average price. The record, though, for a PSA 8 was $11,400 back in December of 2021 through REA. At number 2, we have this really nice 1962 Topps Ernie Banks in a PSA 9. You know those 1962 Topps cards, it is so hard to find, 1, well-centered, and 2, without any chipping of that wood border. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this particular card, if you notice at the label, this is marked as the Mr. Cub collection. Now, I'm not sure if that means that Ernie Banks himself owned this card or whether there's a big Ernie Banks collector and he calls himself Mr. Cub. I'm not sure. I didn't do any research on that. Would love to know in the comments if you know what that designation means. This one sold on December 3rd for $8,859. It was an auction. There were 54 bids and sold well above the current VCP average price of $6,432. Again, not in VCP's database, and the increase in price over the current VCP average could be because this card was part of the Mr. Cub collection. Now, the record high sale for a normal PSA 9 was $12,535 back in September of 2022 through memory lane. In a PSA 9, it has a pop count of only 22, and there has not been a single PSA PSA 10 graded copy of the 62 Topps Ernie Banks card. And at number 1, from the 1960s, the 1963 Topps Pete Rose rookie card in a PSA 8.5. This one sold on December 25th for $35,000. It was a best offer, about $9,000 above the current VCP average price of $26,400. And again, yet another card that did not show up in VCP's database. A lot of cards from the 1960s that, according to eBay, have sold and the transaction did take place, but for whatever reason, VCP did not pull that data from eBay. The record high sale for a PSA 8.5 was $41,701 back in May of 2016 through a PWCC listing on eBay. All right, let's get to the top 10 from the 1970s. Coming in at number 10, we have this 1975 Topps Rich Goose Gossage in a PSA 10. This one sold on December 22nd for $3,495. It was a buy it now, and that is the current VCP average price, and it is also a new record high sale for a PSA 10 copy. The previous high was only $450 all the way back in October of 2019 through eBay. Now, in a PSA 9, there are 102 graded copies, but this is one of only 7 graded a PSA 10. At number 9, we have this 1979 O-Pee-Chee Ozzie Smith rookie card. You can tell the slightly different, more of a cream-colored back as opposed to gray, like the normal 79 Topps are printed on. This one sold on December 18th for $4,250. It was a best offer, quite a bit above, about $2,000 ahead or above the current VCP average price of $2,291. However, this particular sale was not in VCP's database. If this sale, in fact, did take place, it would represent a new record high sale for the O-Pee-Chee Ozzie Smith rookie card. The previous high was $3,300 back in June of 2021 through a PWCC listing on eBay. Now, in a PSA 9, there's a pop count of 38. There have only been 2 graded a PSA 10 of the O-Pee-Chee Ozzie Smith rookie card. At number 8, we have this 1973 Topps Nolan Ryan in a PSA 9. Oh, what a gorgeous card. Even the back of this 73 is fairly well centered, which is sometimes difficult to do. You may have a card well centered on the front, but off center on the back. This is a nice combination of the two. This one sold on December 10th for $4,451. It was an auction. There were 38 bids. This one was in VCP's database, and the current VCP average price for a PSA 9 was $3,368. The record high for PSA 9, $4,700, and that was back in August of 2022 through eBay. In a PSA 9, this is one of 143 graded copies. There are only 6 that have been graded a PSA 10. At number 7, we have this 1975 Topps George Brett in a PSA 9. Fairly common card to see on the top 10 list. This one sold on December 14th for $5,014. It was an auction. There were 45 bids. Current VCP average price, $5,296, so a little bit less than the current VCP average price. The record high sale for PSA 9, though, $8,562 back in July of 2021 through Memory Lane. There have been 322 graded a PSA 9, but only 11 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 6, we have another PSA 9 75 Topps George Brett. This one sold on December 7th for $5,400. It was a best offer. Now, this sale was not in VCP's database, but again, shows the average VCP price of $5,296 and that record high sale of $8,562. At number 5, We have this 1977 Topps Johnny Bench in a PSA 10. This one sold on December 1st for $5,767. It was an auction. There were 5 bids. Current VCP average price, though, is $7,152. Now, this sale, again, was not in VCP's database. The record high sale for a PSA 10 Johnny Bench was $12,000 back in May of 2021 through Heritage Auction. There have been 275 graded a PSA 9, but this particular copy is only one of 21 copies that have been graded a PSA 10. At number 4, we have the 1973 Topps Mike Schmidt rookie card in a PSA 9. My opinion, well-deserved PSA 9. Overall, great-looking copy of the Schmidt rookie card. This one sold on December 8th for $8,000. It was a buy it now, sold quite a bit above the current VCP average price of $6,758, and this sale was in VCP's database. Now, the record high sale for a PSA 9 was $19,800 back in July of 2021 through Heritage Auction. This card is one of 251 that have been graded a PSA 9. There have only been 6 graded a PSA 10. At number 3, we have this 1971 Topps Hank Aaron in a PSA 9. Again, just like the 62 Topps cards, the 71 Topps cards are 1, hard to find centered, and 2, suffer quite easily from chipping with that solid black border. But that's a beautiful looking 71 Topps Hank Aaron there. This one sold on December 1st for $8,625. It was a best offer. This sale not in VCP's database. They show a current average price for a PSA 9 of $10,800. Now, the record high sale for a PSA 9 was $18,858 back in May of 2016 through Memory Lane. There have been 39 graded PSA 9, but only 4 graded a PSA 10. Now, the note I have there for that record high sale of $18,858, that label included the fact that it was a Hammerin' Hank collection card. So again, I don't know if that what meant it was from Hank Aaron's personal collection. I wasn't aware that he collected any cards or had any cards. So again, it could be a prominent Hank Aaron collector calling himself Hammerin' Hank. I don't know. Would love to know in the comments if you know any Hank Aaron fans out there or collectors, if you knew whether that record high sale back in 2016 would have been a card from Hank Aaron's personal collection or just from a major Hank Aaron collector. All right, at number 2. Here's the interesting one, bit of a head scratcher maybe, the 1971 Topps Gary Gentry in a PSA 9. Again, so hard to find those 71 Topps cards in really high condition, and this is also a card from the high number series and a short print. So that could factor into the price of this card. It sold on December 3rd for $11,700. It was an auction. There were 16 bids. Now, this card was not in VCP's database. They show a current VCP average price of $2,561. So this sale would blow away and set a new record high sale for that Gary Gentry card. Now, the previous high was $2,672 for a PSA 9 back in September of 2020 through eBay. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This PSA 9 is only one of 2 copies, and there has not been a single PSA 10. So this PSA 9 copy is extremely rare. Again, high number short print card. So you got some of these registry collectors, maybe a Mets collector, 71 Topps collector, you name it. Maybe really wanted one of those 2 highest grade copies of that Gary Gentry card. Wow, $11,700. All right, on to the number 1 card from the 1970s for December 2023. It's the 1977 Topps Nolan Ryan in a PSA 10. This one sold on December 6th for $14,421. It was an auction. There were 27 bids. Actually sold below the current VCP average price, though, of $15,611. This sale was in VCP's database. The record high sale for a PSA 10 was $16,800 back in July of 2023 through Heritage Auction. In a PSA 9, there are 283 copies, but this PSA 10 is only one of 21 that have been graded a PSA 10. There you go, the top 10 PSA vintage baseball card sales on eBay for cards from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s for December 2023. As always, would love to know in the comments what you think about the cards that made this month's top 10 lists. And with that, that's all I have for you. So until next time, thanks for watching.